Hello, listeners. Thanks for tuning in again this week. I'm excited for today's guest. He's my best friend, and he's been there for me through some of the most tumultuous times of my life, and unbelievably lucky that he stuck around through my bullshit. He's also a comedian and just all-around wonderful human being. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Pitra. Hello, Alex.
Hi, Chris.
Want to start off by saying I love you?
I love you too. Very much.
Also,
Listeners, wish Papa happy birthday. It's his birthday.
35. My dad called me while I was at work.
Yeah.
And I was like 30. He asked me how old I was turning, and I said 35. And I go, I'm fucking old. He was like, yeah, you are. And then I go, is Sean turning 40? He goes, yeah. We have a child that's turning 40. And I was like, man, I think mom's going to have to develop a pill addiction or something, right? You have a child that's 40 and just boom.
Just send yourself. There's the cliff.
Yeah. But that's so insane.
35 is not that old, though.
But that's as we get older, right?
Yeah, that's true. But 35, I feel like, is the time in your life when you really your true character, like who you are in your soul, if that makes sense, starts to really dictate how you act.
Well, the funny thing is, this is around the time that midlife crises normally happen.
Yeah.
But lucky for me, I've already had 4 of them. So
yeah, right. Got
them out of it's normally 4, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeesh.
I always heard it was more. But I have friends your age that are very serious people, and
what are you, 28?
Yeah. But they're a very serious person, and they're very, and that starts to show.
Yeah.
A lot more. Friends my age that are very serious people, it's starting to show a lot more.
It's so weird.
But I also have friends that are your age that are goofy as hell. Doesn't matter. It's who your character is what defines your age more, in my opinion, more than the number.
Yeah, I'd say I'm still mentally 30.
Yeah.
I'll probably be that way for a while.
That's where my dad is. He's damn near 60. I mean, he still gut laughs at Harry Balls Truman all the time. Because Harry Truman doesn't have a middle name.
So good. Now to get to the brass taxes.
Yes.
So, I mean, we met through stand-up, through open mics and such, and we did a lot of shows together and things of that nature. And so I'm familiar with the tone of your comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear someone set enough times, you start to kind of peel away at where did this come from?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And so I'm curious, because you've joked a lot about being picked on and people giving you titty twisters and shit like that.
Yeah.
Were you really picked on that much as a kid?
Oh yeah. 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 I was a very easy subject to pick on.
Why is that?
I think most of it is because I was kind of a jolly kid. But my my nature was I deferred to authority. And still do to some extent. But I
think that's called a teacher's pet.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, all jokes aside, it's true. I was.
Oh, okay.
But as I got older, and now where I'm at, poor use of language. I am very picky about who I choose to submit to, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So
and I don't even know if you need to call it submission. It's more trust. The older you get.
Yeah, but I'm very easily trusting, and it's very easy to lose my trust. Those are that's a huge thing with me. And it's problematic at times. But to some degree, like, the older I got, so like in elementary school, for example, I was definitely a teacher's pet, but that's because like I was a child, like I didn't have my respect for authority went far beyond like just listening to a teacher and doing whatever they said. It's like I needed to like impress authority figures. Like that was, and a lot of that came from like never seeing like that pride from my dad. It was always, it's weird, like I hear about it now where it was always behind the curtain. Like he never told me I'm so proud of you, but he would like tell other people how proud he was of me. And then my mom would be like, I swear, he tells me all the time how proud he is of you. And I'm like, why can't you just fucking tell me? That being said,
that totally makes sense now because you deep down, because you've always had conviction, even with the anxiety and things like that. So the concept of I know that I can impress an adult or impress upon an adult that I'm capable of having normal conversation or doing what's asked of me, things of that nature.
yes.
So
yeah,
totally
and that
makes sense.
So it was like, at first, it like even when I was small, it started with like other adults. Like I was so good at speaking to adults. I could hold like adult conversations as a child. Like I wasn't like overly formal. It was just like I could hold conversation. I wasn't like an airhead. And the older I got, the easier a target you become for other kids. Because like I'm not going to act out in the name of defending myself. Like if somebody picks on me, like I'm not going to cry to authority.
Oh, I see.
And I'm not going to lash back out at them because I'm afraid of the authority. So like the best example I would say is like I got punched. Well, it was more like an elbow, I think. I took an elbow to the nose in first grade on the bus from this kid that was supposedly like my best friend, but it was the only kid I knew.
Oh, okay.
We were the first house in our neighborhood. There was no other people. Wow. It was literally just us. So then all of my friends like didn't live close to me, So it was like I made friends with the one kid that was sort of close to me who's on my baseball team.
Okay.
And then so he elbowed me in the nose and I was bleeding everywhere and I just hit it.
Wow.
Yeah, I just like was like whatever. I'm not gonna.
Did anyone ever find out?
When I was getting off the bus driver was
okay.
like, "What the heck happened to your face?" And I can't lie, right? Because it's an authority figure. It's the bus driver,
Oh.
So I'm like, oh, Travis. And then the next day, Travis gets on the bus, and the driver gives him a bus ticket for elbowing me in the face. We had we call it a bus ticket, but it was like you got to go to the principal's office, and they're gonna call your parents and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, please don't.
I don't want to press charges.
Right, exactly. It was like that. But then like, the older I got, everybody goes through that awkward teenage phase. But like my awkward teenage phase, I looked like a Who from Whoville. I was just horrible looking. Not much better now, but
I was going to say, like, did you have a growth spurt? Like,
it was unbelievable.
Okay.
The growth spurt. But I was tiny. Like up until 7th grade, I was like one of the smallest kids in the class.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, so like 6th grade, they called me Fievel.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And they like asked me if I wanted cheese. And I didn't know what that meant because I'd never seen American Tail.
That's such a funny old reference. Like,
yeah,
that movie is pretty old.
Yeah. And so they just called me Fievel. And then like everyone called me gay for a while because I had long hair. And then long hair became cool. And then like a hipster, I cut my shit off because I was like, fuck you, dude. Anyway, and then 7th grade came around and it got a little better. But then that was when I was exposed to like the older kids. And then the older kids just fucking laid into me. I mean, it was like I was getting like hairs ripped out of my legs.
Jesus.
All the time. The titty twisters thing happened in 8th grade. But that's when I grew too. In 8th grade, I grew 7 inches.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. But yeah, the titty twisters thing is very real. Like I was legit bleeding out of my chest.
God.
And then like even into high school, it didn't really slow down until I got older. And, about like junior year, I would say, I got more comfortable in my skin. and just like didn't really care anymore. Like if somebody was going to give me crap about something, I was like, whatever, dude. Like I don't care. What are you actually going to do to me? Are you going to beat me up? Because if you're going to beat me up, like there are consequences now.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? Like people will know. Like because you actually could beat me up. Like it's not just going to be like a punch to the gut and then I cry about it. Like if you physically assault me, it will be evident on my face and my body. So like, like kids used to, in high school, like when I was a sophomore, I had admittedly, the weirdest hockey bag ever. It was a backpack. It was like a giant hockey bag backpack.
Oh.
I looked like such a tool. But it was better for my back.
Have you ever seen a snowboard bag?
Yeah, it was like that.
Okay.
But like way bulkier because you're carrying all of your hockey gear.
Oh, wow.
So it's like literally like...
Oh, you're like Fred from Hotel Transylvania.
Sure. Yes.
Have you ever seen that?
No.
Oh,
I've seen the first one, but I haven't seen
Yeah. So the redheaded guy.
Oh, yeah. It's like that. And like the first day of practice, the captain of the junior varsity hockey team told me that he was going to shit on my hockey bag. And I was like, why would you do that? And he's like, look at your bag. And I was like, fair, I guess. And then the last practice of the year, they were like, hey, go get pucks. And I was like, we already have pucks. And they're like, go get pucks. And I was like, guys. And I came back in, and there's a nice hot turd on my bag. Yeah.
What the fuck?
I know. I was like, wow, you actually did it. Also, 20 guys watched you do that. So, oops on your part, mostly.
You know what's funny, though? If a friend of mine said he was going to do that, I would watch.
Yeah. But, like, guys.
Why is that, though? Is it like... Because
it's almost like, it's more like endearing if it's a butt. Like, if it's a friend that said, like, hey, I'm going to crap on your bag, I'd be like, oh, all right. And then when he's, like, going to do it, I'm like, all right, I'll watch this. You're picking it up, but I'll watch it. But yeah, so I walked back in, and he, like, did it. He like pooped on a paper towel and like put it on my bag.
Oh,
and everyone was like, "It's only on a paper towel." I'm like, "He still crapped on my bag. Like, I'm the one who's picking up the poop. This is a human poop. We don't have a mouse problem here. This is a man's crap."
Yeah.
Yeah. So like stuff like that happened, you know. But like, I think it just got to the point where, like, I learned late, I guess, or maybe it just started working late, that like I could just be funny and get out of stuff.
That's such a weird dichotomy because you, at an early age, grasped how adults are supposed to act.
Mm-hmm.
And you're surrounded by kids who are acting like they don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so easy to grasp.
Yeah.
Why isn't this working? Like, what are they not seeing that explains so much. It's weird because I've like known the majority of that aspect, but like we've talked about it. If you watch Dude Absolutely or Duck Duck Grey Duke when it was going, we talked about like the problem that we have with society is like you and I are capable of having a conversation with anyone.
Right.
And it doesn't require a whole lot.
Right.
And it's real easy to, it seems really easy to diffuse stuff.
Why is it so hard to just get along?
Yeah.
You know? And it's one thing to completely disagree with somebody, and it's another thing to attach somebody's whatever they're saying to you to like them as a person, and then like what's the right word? Not speculate, but like to like expand that opinion into like who they are, if that makes sense. Like if it's an opinion you disagree with, right? So like somebody says like, I believe we should have healthcare for all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Free healthcare. And somebody's like, you just want to give free handouts to everybody, and you're like, no. Yeah. Just like, if you're dying, you should just go to the hospital. And they're like, you don't like the Jews. And you're like, what?
My mind went straight to Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, right. And that's where like, you're like, what the hell? I can disagree with you.
Or Josh Otremba.
Josh. FedEx doing you wrong again? Although I will say his Snap stories are cute. He's so good to the puppies.
Yeah.
He's a good person.
I know. I need to reconnect with him.
See, that's the thing. It's like we can see that his political beliefs are separate from him as the human.
Yes.
Like him as a human, good guy.
I think the other concept that's like, it seems like people's inability to affect change on a national level affects them.
Yes.
So when they hold on to these like
the conviction
policies and things, it's like part of it is because they can't fucking do anything about it.
Yeah.
But if other people think the way that I do, at least I'm not alone in this thing. So that's where that conviction comes from.
It's like it creates, it's good and bad too. Like it's good to some extent because like that's the only way that you actually have societal change is by avoiding groupthink while also convincing people that like certain ideas are for their own good or will at least benefit them to some extent, you know, or benefit the whole. But then also you get the groupthink thing where then you just start, it's just, you create like Petri dishes of just horrible ideas and then they're allowed to expand and
the hive mind.
Yeah. And then your president's a fucking
lizard.
Yeah. Which I'm voting for Grogu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta remember to bring this up to you, but have you heard of the man, I'll have to text Justin. There's something beyond the Bohemian Grove thing.
Oh, jeez.
Which Alex Jones again discovered.
Yeah.
And turned out to be true.
Which like
that's for another thing.
Again, separate from politics, that dude has his finger on the pulse to some degree. It's very weird.
He's like the kid that is friends with all of the football players, but doesn't play football.
Oh, he fills the water jug.
Or they let him hang. They see him at parties and they're like, "Hey, Jed."
Yeah, but like he carries everyone's booze, so if the party gets like party gets busted, then he's the only one who gets busted.
And the thing is that he doesn't like overly interject until gets too drunk or something, and then they're like, "All right, dude." And that's Alex Jones.
We gotta send Tony home. He just tried to grab a girl's boob.
He gets drunk with the attention and all of those things, and then
I agree. But so again, we don't need to keep talking about AJ that much, but like the whole making the frickin' frogs gay thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what he was talking about, right?
Changes their orientation, right?
Well, no, it changes their sexual organs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Okay. So, I mean, frogs don't have a gender is a social construct. Let's be clear about that.
Yes.
It is. Sex is not. Okay? You can change your sex. You can change your gender. But gender was created by mankind.
Oh my God.
Like, and if I say that to the wrong person, they're like,
Kim,
fucking liberal commie.
God, what did she say? Landon was about to go to school. Something came up, I forget, and she goes, I can't be a boy, I don't have a wiener. And Landon goes, you don't need a wiener to be a boy, Mom. And then like walked backwards to go out the door.
Good for him.
Oh, it was so funny.
See, I love that. You got great kids, man.
Pretty lucky.
You're a good dad.
They navigate towards, so far, fairly good kids too, which is nice.
Yeah. And if they don't, just be honest with them. That's what I wish. That's like, I'm not a parent yet. Thank God. Am I right, America? If I could have one criticism of my parents, love them to death. Saw my mom today. She's a wonderful human being. But it would just be like that they didn't hyperbolize.
Mm.
You know? Because I think that's what does people like me wrong. It's what gave me anxiety. Is like fear of the very worst thing possible happening all the time. All the time. And then the concussions didn't help that. I fried my brain.
How many concussions did you have?
I have 5 like legitimate like been to the hospital or like to the doctor's office for many visits concussions.
That's the danger zone.
Yeah, but I have more than that probably that I just didn't do anything about.
Damn.
Yeah.
You're going to murder Kirby and Caitlin at some point.
I got CT for sure. Yeah, I mean, most of them are from hockey. Yeah, my right eye stopped working for one of them.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. Have I told you this story?
Mm-mm.
Oh, this is a funny one.
It is?
Yeah, you'll laugh.
Okay.
I promise there's a laugh part. So, it's actually not the opening line, but now that I think about it, you're going to laugh at the opening line too. I was playing in a game for hockey, and I was right in the slot. And which is like, if you don't have your head up and are like aware of your surroundings, kind of the death zone.
Okay.
Right? Like, you're a target for everyone on the other team if you have the puck and you're in this particular part of the rink.
Okay.
So I was there without the puck, and a guy passed me the puck, and a kid from behind hit me with his elbow, and he hit the back of my head, and I don't remember anything. Like, as soon as it happened, apparently I scored. Kind of rad.
What?
Yep. And then I went back to the bench, and first I went to the wrong bench, and then they were like, no, over there. And so I went and sat down, and my coach immediately is like, you can't play right now. So I'm on the bench, and I'm like not doing great, and like I'm starting to feel sick to my stomach. Classic signs of, And so period ends, and then my coach like walks me. He's like, you gotta go. So he walks me over, and then he like tells my mom like, you gotta take him to the hospital. Like, he's for sure concussed.
Yikes.
And I'm all out of it. And I remember I put my bag in the back of the van, and then we were driving, and apparently we drove past Chipotle, and I was like, Mom, can we get Chipotle? And she was like, no, we're going to the hospital. And I started like heave crying because I couldn't get Chipotle. And I was like, I just want a burrito. You're being a bitch, Mom. Whatever. Just like so. So we go to the hospital, and my mom took me to Children's because that was the closest hospital.
Oh, wow.
Because we were like in Blaine or something, and it was
Okay.
just like we took 15, and it just brought you to, So I walk in, and we sit down, and then they're like, we're going to do some CAT scans and just like start running a bunch of tests. And I was like, all right. So they did the eye thing, like the follow my finger. And they brought the finger over this direction. And my right eye just started like wavering, and then it just like sagged back to the middle until I was cross-eyed. Yeah, and I was like, well, that ain't. And they're like, yeah, that's a bad thing. So what had happened is it was like the way the hemispheres of the brain work. I had hit like some part of the left hemisphere that affected the like my ability to control the left side of my face.
Wow.
Yeah, or the right side of my face, I should say, because it's like the opposite.
I knew
side.
what you meant.
Yeah. So that one was really bad, but I'd had others that were not good. I blacked out again in a game year later.
So this is interesting. When it comes to sports, because I would imagine that, because how long did you play hockey for?
I was 6 when I started. I started skating when I was 2.
Holy smokes.
My family moved when I was 5. So I didn't play when I was 5.
Mm.
And then I started playing when I was 6. And I stopped playing when I was 19.
Okay.
So I played like men's league and stuff.
Gotcha.
Until I was 19. And then I just couldn't risk it anymore.
But I mean, at a young age, you're in a sport that you watch. If you watch it on TV, you're aware that there's a violent or aggressive aspect of the sport.
Yeah.
Yet you have this, like, it's just interesting that you are able to separate and like that shit stays on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
And when I go out into the real world, this is how I act.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, it brings out like the sort of like fight or flight nature in you, you know? Like that's, I mean, it's a combat sport to some degree. I mean, it's not, you know, or they say it's a contact sport, but
Yeah.
But like really what I found is it, you know, until the concussions really started happening, it does a really good job of teaching you how to like control your emotions. You know, just like a boxer, like they say, like, you know, you're at your worst when your emotions control you. So like you're lashing out, you're letting your defenses down, you know, you lose like your methodology. So it's like learning to be composed and have poise in times of like desperation and like to be able to like work toward a common goal alongside people in spite of the fact that there are like, you know, odds against you and people are legitimately hitting you and you know, so like it certainly helped me like in social situations too, because like you learn how to diffuse a situation really well through things like contact sports, in my opinion. I could be totally wrong.
I get what you're saying.
But like, you know, in a social situation where like I feel there's an adversarial component to a conversation or an argument with somebody, like I feel that sense kick in, but like you don't have to act on it. Or I think people who are kind of without that sort of competitive past, but even like in your sense, right? So you were you skated and you skateboarded. Like there's an internal struggle that comes along with that. That's like,
for sure.
The odds are against you, but it's like the odds of the universe. It's not like somebody is throwing fucking rocks at you while you're like trying to. But
well, it's interesting because like if you don't land a trick, like like when you're going to war with a handrail or a gap or something, like immediately, like if you fall, like just fuck, like there's this thing that goes on, but like you're not. Yeah, you're right. Like you're not screaming fuck like as you're going up to the thing, like,
right? Fuck you, rail.
You have to get your shit together, and yeah.
But it's about there's more composure involved in that than there is in a game of hockey, in my opinion.
You know what's interesting is there's like choreography to it, because
so much.
If you're genuinely like furious as you're doing a trick, you look insane.
Yeah, but also like landing a kickflip requires so much control. And like letting your nerves get in the way of that control, it interrupts your. I mean, it happens. You watch the X Games or like the Olympic skateboarding this past year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when Nyjah Houston was like, they were doing the it was like the medal round, and they were doing the like big trick. It was like the last.
Oh,
thing
the best trick.
Yeah, and like he didn't land any of them. It was like on the first one he looked composed as hell. You know, he was fine, whatever, and he barely doesn't land it. And then the second one, he looks a little more desperate, and he doesn't land it. And then the last one is like, you could just tell. He was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to land this trick, and then he doesn't do it. And you're like, I mean, it's obviously that's the highest stakes possible. You know, it's like gold or medal round of the X Games or medal round of the Olympics. Regardless, it's high stakes. But like, I mean, in your case, you're not just putting your body on the line. Like you're also putting your pride on the line.
Oh, for sure.
You know? So it's like the stakes are equally high. And like learning that competitive behavior, no matter how you learn it, I think is super important for people. My dad always said, like, I don't care how you learn how to compete, you need to learn. Like, I don't care if it's through chess club or competitive fishing or hockey, but you need to learn how to compete. Because like you need to learn how to lose.
Yeah.
It's like too many people today don't know how to lose.
Yeah. I mean, it's
election 2020.
It's interesting because video games kind of put that on its head.
Yeah.
Because you could try as many times as you want.
Yeah.
Which can be maddening.
Yeah.
Like there's almost like it's kind of nice in a competitive like a genuine competitive situation. Not that there isn't in video games, but when it's over, you can either ruminate on it or accept it and move on. with the video game thing, like it's like you can just drive yourself nuts for 6 hours trying to do the same fucking thing.
Mm-hmm. But then I would also even argue that on the flip side of that, perseverance is something that you learn very well in video games.
That's true.
You know, people suck for a long time at Call of Duty before they start not sucking.
Speaking of people sucking, let's get back to your childhood.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're going through like being picked on and in these kind of shitty situations, what was like, were your parents aware that this stuff was happening?
Yeah. This is part of the whole, like, you don't understand perspective as a kid, you know? Like, and I struggled with this a long time anyway, but like, you don't know how to weigh like situations effectively. Like if you had to say on like how bad did that suck on a scale of 1 to 10? You know, when you're a child, everything's a 10 or a 0.
Oh.
You know, and then the older you get, you learn how to actually evaluate, you know, circumstances a little bit better. But like my dad, bless his heart, would like, I mean, when I was getting bullied by that kid in elementary school constantly, it was like unending. Like every day this kid picked on me. It sucked, man. I hated it. But I didn't know what to do. Like he was bigger, stronger, faster. He just owned me, this kid. I remember we were sitting in the Menards parking lot. And I was trying to tell my dad about it, and I was crying, and I was all upset. And then my dad was like, I'll take care of it. I was like, okay. And he drove over to the kid's house. Didn't bring me with.
Wow.
Called his dad outside and was like, better get a handle on your kid because he's being a dick. And he didn't stop. The kid didn't, because I'm sure the dad was like, whatever. But to me, I'm like, damn, Dad, you cool as hell. You really were the Orange Power Ranger. You know, like he was like, he did what he could. And like my first ever booster pack of Pokemon cards, I got for my 5th birthday at Circus
Wow.
in Coon Rapids. I remember this so vividly because I got I swear to Christ, this is true. This is not a lie. I got a first edition holographic Charizard.
Oh, yeah.
And I traded it to the kid who gave me the cards. He's like, oh, I'll trade you for that. And I was like, okay. I'm 5. And the kid's like, I'll give you a 3 Raichus. And I was like, oh, 3 for 1? Yeah. I don't even know what Pokemon is, you know?
Yeah.
And then they moved away and we moved away. And I told my dad that, like, I got this card, but I don't have it anymore. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, he traded it to me for 3 Raichus. And he was like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but we're going to go over their house. So he piled me in the car and we drove from Maple Grove to their new house in Coon Rapids. And my dad was like, yeah, we're going to get that card back. And they were like, no. And my dad was like, yeah. And they were like, no. And then I think they just had a falling out over a Pokemon card.
Oh, that's so funny.
But my dad, like, he went to bat for me, you know?
Wow. It sounds like, though, it's more like those situations, they're like teachable moments. Like,
yeah,
wanting you to like, if it's important enough,
yeah,
to like really go and stand your ground.
yeah. And it was like, that was like when it was way down the line, you know? It was like the point of no return. He was like, all right, I'll step in, you know? Because for him, and like, if I had to sum my dad up to like one trait that he valued most or values most is accountability. And so like, it sucked sometimes, for sure. You know, like I'd have a bad hockey game and you'd be like, you played like shit tonight, you know? Like you were awful out there. And I remember one conversation specifically where I was like, what about Ryan? He was bad. And my dad's like, we're not talking about Ryan. Stops the car. He pulls the car over, parks the car. He turns around and he's like, that kid does not have the skills and the gifts that you have. And he's trying so much harder than you. Don't you ever take down somebody else. Like, we're talking about you. He's giving it everything he has, and he's just not capable. You, on the other hand, are fully capable and aren't even trying. So before you knock somebody else for not being good enough, you should probably try to be good.
That's intense.
Flipped me, like, literally that was the day I decided I was going to actually try.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So, like, had some value, for sure. Terrible for my psyche at times, but...
Yeah, that's such a, like, a storm of conflicting feelings, because everything is so, on a daily basis, you can go through every type of confrontation imaginable. When you're in school, like as a kid, like the least important thing to the most important thing could all happen in one fucking school day.
Oh, yeah.
Just insane.
Dude, school was wild.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about it, just even in that context.
Right?
School was crazy.
Insane. But, like, to have these, like, values instilled in you, but to that's such a mind fuck, is what I'm trying to convey, is like, you know, these things, and actually it goes back to that whole, like, guys, I know how the world works.
Yeah.
Why are you acting this way?
Yeah.
I mean, that's beyond like anxiety inducing. That's like the type of shit that can like push you to like hysteria, because it's
yeah,
nothing makes sense.
Yeah. But also, like, it has like down the line value.
For sure.
You know? But at the time, it's like you don't know how to, like you were saying, like you don't know how to weigh, like, is this the worst possible thing ever, or is this just not a big deal? So I didn't have the capability to separate those things. So, like, everything was a huge deal to me as a kid. Everything. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I hit my brother in the face with a plastic puck once. I made him play goalie. In the basement. Okay. I was just shooting pucks at him, and I just ripped one at his face by accident, mind you.
Sure.
But I nuked this puck at him, and it was just instant blood everywhere.
Oof.
And it was like, I was like grounded for the weekend. My dad was like, you know, and I was like, I didn't do it on purpose. And to him, he's like, you need to know better. And my brother, I'm 9 years old or 8 years old, you know?
Yeah.
And like, to me, I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, the world is ending based on his reaction, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I really like lost sight of, I guess, maybe how big a deal things really are.
Mm.
And I think I have a problem with that today. Like, I think it still plays a huge role in my decision making and how I react to external.
That makes sense though, because like, we remember your brain logs the most traumatic and the most amazing things, like,
for sure,
on a behavioral basis.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So when something feels like it's going to go in this direction, your brain goes, if they don't get it, then I'm going to lose my fucking mind, because if they don't get this thing, then there's no way they're going to understand.
Right. It's imprinting. It's like, come on, man. The 3D printer in your brain of horrible circumstances or great circumstances.
Yeah.
Just understand, like, hey, man, remember what happened last time? And you're like,
but
dude, yeah.
But it makes you look at people differently, because, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
if you start to associate, like, if I even try to approach a situation this way, they're not going to fucking get it. So it's like,
yeah, because it's not just an impression that events have on you. It's an impression that you have on events. For sure.
Yeah.
I've never really even thought about it that way. That you log the reaction too.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Because you think about
the reaction is what you log, and it's like how you choose to interpret it. Christopher, foot 5. That's really, really insightful.
Well, I am 35 years old, so.
I know, but that's super insightful. It's like, that's why you have visceral reactions to things.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
like when somebody gets all intense.
Mm-hmm. Well, because the whole consequence thing, right?
Yeah.
you start to learn, you're logging these consequences. And I'm saying consequences, but that's just how your brain interprets it.
Yeah, well, there's. I like to say that there are no good or bad consequences. There's just consequences.
Yes.
It's how you choose to interpret them.
So, like, you learn that because you think about when you're a kid and you just say whatever the fuck, and if an adult hears it, they go, huh, what?
Yeah.
Like, I remember my mom found out about the nudie mag fort that we had in the woods because I said something about, like, why does milk come out of a man? And she was like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And so in that moment, I was like, oh, don't talk about penis milk to your parents because they don't like that.
Right.
So there's like those things that you start to learn. You know what I mean? And that's
for sure.
That's where you learn to lie too.
Yeah.
Or omit truth.
Yeah.
But then it goes back to that whole, like, how you're going to handle this situation. It's not that you're faking it, but you're going to talk to certain people differently because you know how they're going to react if you talk about this thing, or if it shows on your face that you, like, completely don't agree with the thing.
Yeah.
When your brain logs that you don't think they have the capacity to have a conversation on the level that you can, you talk to them differently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And sometimes you assume incorrectly, and it further creates further problems in the situation.
Yeah. Or you do it so much that when they see the other side of you, they're like, what?
Yeah.
I had no idea that's how you felt.
When you, like, build a rapport with somebody in a certain context, and then when you, like, talk like you're not that version self, they're like, are you on mescaline? What's going on with your brain? Like, I've had, like with comics is a great example.
Oh, man.
When you get, like, real with a comic who hasn't heard you ever get real before, and they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Chill, dude.
Yeah.
You're just talking about your crank for 10 minutes on stage. You don't get to tell me about your financial problems now. To some degree, it's, like, endearing in a way if you go the other way. Right? So, like, some people only know me in a professional context.
Oh, sure.
And then, like, I'll rip off a joke in front of my colleagues, and they're like, damn, you're funny. What happened?
Okay, Jess.
Yeah. I had that today. So, somebody on one of my coworkers used, like, an awesome word, like, to describe somebody. He was like, you blank asshole, to one of our other coworkers. And it was, like, in a funny manner. He wasn't, like, calling them an actual asshole. And everyone in the group was like, what was that word? You know? So I, like, looked it up. And it's like synonyms were just, like, totally, like, we use these in everyday conversation kind of words. But he chose to use this awesome word. And then the guy who got called the blank asshole was like, I don't know what the word was. I'm not blanking because it was, like, cunty or whatever. It's like, I don't remember what the word was. And he's, like, reading all the synonyms, and he's like, dude, I'm calling myself this. Like, this is the best description ever. It's like all the words are, like, irritable, quick to be angry, like, whatever. It was like, I don't even know what the word was, but it was so funny. And after that, like, somebody said something about, like, questions that we had. Like, does anyone have questions before the meeting ends or whatever? I was like, I don't mean to be, and I said the word, and then I volleyed a complaint.
Oh, okay.
And everyone was like, oh, wow, look at you. And I was like, guys, that was the laziest callback I've ever done.
You know what's funny is in that world, they don't even know to say callback.
Oh, yeah.
They just are like, he remembered.
I will say, though, like, when Caitlin says callback, I love my wife so much. Which, by the way, like...
Hold on. We're veering off a lot.
I want to go... I'm going to actually take this back to where we were not veering off. So, something that I've learned more about that sort of, like, the... my social engineering, Like the way I was engineered socially, you know, like we talked about with when I was a little kid, how I was the grown-up kid and couldn't understand why people were being mean to me. Like, guys, why can't we just be nice? And then, you know, some of the other traits that have picked, so like the hysteria sort of thing that we talked about. Having a partner that shares to some degree a similar sort of track record when it comes to those traits.
Oh.
But then also has completely different experiences that have informed those traits makes understanding why your traits exist so much easier.
Wow.
I feel like I've become so much more self-aware over the last 3 years being with Caitlin, in part because she and I act very similarly, but it's informed by different circumstances.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, like, I don't know. I just, like, that's one of the weird things that you, like, learn you're grateful for when it comes to, like, having a life partner.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I would have never guessed that was one of the outcomes or one of, like, the positives of being married. But it's like, I get why I'm kind of a psycho now. You know? It's like, she's pleasant and, like, really overly kind and, like, super thoughtful. And I'm all of those things minus the kindness and insert cynicism. And I'm like, why am I like that? We're the same. Our brains work the same way. But my brain chooses to be like, what a douche. When she's like, how creative.
But from what I gather, your dad was within the context of like small groups or with just you or, you know, whoever, seemed quick to have an opinion on a person or a situation. Do you think that rubbed
Boils
off?
down to car rides.
They
sang in the car and they played games in the car. My dad's rule was look for deer. That was it. That's the... Like, my dad is so good. My dad's like the Don Rickles of dads. You know? It's just full of them. Full of zingers. He's like, he is taken to no longer sending me text messages. He just sends me GIFs now, which is the best. Because I get to, like, know what my dad's brain is doing, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, when the Wild score, he sends me the GIF of the baby at the hockey game going like,
oh, yeah.
But he only sends that. And, like, I don't have cable. I can't watch Wild games. So I just get that text from him, and I'm like, oh, Wild scored, you know? But, like, he'll, like, so that's kind of so off topic. But to some degree, like, my dad's cynicism is what rubbed off on me, whereas her mom's optimism is what rubbed off on her. But it came from, like, a similar sort of context. Like, her mom was very demanding, had very high expectations of her, wanted, you know, accountability was a huge thing with her mother. But that extra thing was the optimism. And the X factor with my dad was cynicism. So it's like we were just like, we had the same.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Because, like, yeah, it's, I mean, we do, as comics, we do it all the time. We'll look at somebody, you're doing crowd work, look at somebody and just make a quick.
Just blanket statement about who they are.
Absolutely. You know what I mean?
Dude, how many times?
But if we were to meet that person in a social situation,
yeah,
the most pleasant human beings.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. Like,
I got heckled by a guy wearing a soccer jersey and I let him have it for like 5 minutes. Called him a field fairy or a field fairy. Like, you pansy ass wearing a soccer jersey. I bet you like sucking your brother's cock too. Just like crazy shit. And everyone in the audience is laughing except that guy's like, dude, I was just... You know, and then afterwards I go up to him like, hey, man, I was just joking. He's like, dude, you really laid into me. Like, that was mean. You know, I'm like, yeah, sorry about that.
It's weird. My cynicism, it sounds super conflicting. Like, I use it to be endearing.
Yes, you do.
Because I'm a tiny little guy.
Yeah, you do, though. But you're very good at it. It's actually like, that's your, that's your like social escape route.
Ooh.
Is like, if you find yourself in a tense situation, I feel like you lean on like two things. Self-deprecation.
Oh.
And endearing cynicism. Like, and you're very, very good at it. And it's I shouldn't say that like you do it to manipulate people.
No.
Because that's not how it comes across. It comes across as like
it's a survival skill.
It diffuses so well. And because it diffuses so well, like we've talked about already, it's like that's imprinted upon you. It's like, hey, remember last time shit hit the fan and I did this thing and it totally worked? I'm just going to keep doing that thing. And it works for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. I mean, I've seen you get out of some seriously awkward situations by just being silly and like poking fun at people, but like not. I mean, the best example, and you know, you can bleep if you need to, but the best example I've seen you do this with is with Doima.
Oh.
You know, when you're like, when he like comes up to you and he's like super huggy and really aggressive, and you're like, hey, coming on a little strong there, buddy. Like, whatever, you know, and everyone can laugh about it. But it diffuses and then everything calms down. Whereas, like for me, guard goes up, person starts doing that thing, and then I just like every ounce of me wants to be like, shut the fuck up. But like I can't do it, so I say nothing.
How long do I have to ride this out until it's over?
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I can do it for a while. It's interesting because when I would drink, my rating would change drastically as to how I fuck with somebody or become.
Yeah, the level at which you.
Yeah,
for sure.
So it's funny. I thought it was just a drinking thing, but it turns out it's not because I still do it.
Yeah, but I would also I would say that your judgment is less impaired. So like your ability to control like when to pull it out is, I would say now it's like you're a little more reserved with it because you're like, oh, it's not time yet. Like I'm gonna hold on to it for a second, and then you get your quip out when it's necessary.
Yeah.
As opposed to like before, it was like the floodgates opening.
Yeah,
it was like New Orleans, 2003. It was just
right. So it was immediately versus like looking for that opening.
You were like Hurricane Chris.
I was Hurricane
Do
Chris.
your chain hang low?
I was Hurricane Christina.
Yes. And that's, I really wanted to now, you know, I don't know how much time you do on this show, but.
Oh, I mean, I've gone for 3 hours before.
Jesus, we cannot do that.
No.
But I do want to talk about drinking.
Yeah.
Because now that, I mean, I've had since December 31st, I've had 3 drinks.
Well, before we do that,
oh yeah, please. This is your show.
Yeah, there's one more thing that I want to cover because of all of these things, right, that created you to be who you are.
Mm-hmm.
When you throw in the dysthymia,
mm-hmm.
which Kim just read my updated chart, by the way, and the list of mental health, they threw dysthymia on there. They threw all kinds of.
Well, you got GAD for sure too.
Gay abnormal disorder.
Yeah.
Abnormally gay disorder.
Yeah, that's the old AGD.
But that, like, it's weird that they don't tell me.
Yeah.
Why? They know that I have access to my chart.
Yeah.
But for some reason.
Well, a lot of things change in the mental health, like, research capacity too. Like, dysthymia used to be called a completely different thing.
Mm.
And then they just changed it. And then I saw on my chart that I had this thing. And I'm like, what is this? I thought it had to do with like my thyroid or whatever. Like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, it's what this is.
Okay, so you're in like an environment where it's easy to like feel sad or attacked or like there's no escaping
mm-hmm.
these scenarios, and like, you know, you can't change schools, you can't do you like that feeling of being trapped, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as you mature, the mental health stuff starts to truly show,
mm-hmm.
but that doesn't mean that you are aware of it. So like,
true.
So as a kid, it's gnarly to be like people say that little kids act like this. Why is it that I still have the same emotions as a 15-year-old that I had as a 6-year-old? Like, did you ever have that? Does that make sense where I'm trying to go? Like,
yeah. Well, I think, so my ADHD is really like my most debilitating mental health thing. And I think that really dictated like how I acted a lot longer than most people, because I wasn't diagnosed until I was 22. So I didn't have any mental health diagnoses until I was 22. So as a child, you act in a certain way, respond to circumstances in a certain way, whatever. And like, I don't think I ever was depressed as a kid, but I certainly had bad anxiety issues as a kid. And I think that was brought on, for the most part, by my ADHD. Go ahead.
Did you? So, I mean, a big part of the ADHD thing is the like impulsiveness.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself saying, why do I do these things?
All the time.
Okay.
And then the older I got, I was more aware of the behavior and equally incapable of managing it.
Oh.
I would say at probably age 13 or 14 was when like depression started setting in, and it got fucking deep for like 3 or 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Where impulsivity was at the all-time high, but so was depression. And so in order to escape the depression, you act impulsively. But it actually compounds the depression because you're not seeing any real reward. It's a quick dopamine fix for every little impulsive decision you make, but it doesn't fix the problem. So like, while I was acting like a total jackass, like having so much fun in high school, I was also failing classes and hated myself for it.
Really?
Yeah. Hated myself for it. But didn't do my homework because I didn't have time to do my homework.
Oh.
I couldn't sit down and do homework.
Yeah.
So I just filled every evening with activities. For a while, it was literally just drive to my girlfriend's house and just watch Criminal Minds. And then drive home too late. And then go to bed. Wake up the next day, literally rinse, repeat. Every day. It was just, and you get filled with like, when you get that trapped feeling, you know, like I can't get out of this cycle, just dread starts to sink in. And it was like I dreaded almost every moment of every day for a while.
I remember this in high school because I did very, very similar things. But so like all this time would fly by and you look at the clock and then all of the things that you should have done, and you have this moment of like, I'm either like accepting that I'm not going to do any of this shit, or I'm now going to spiral and be like, how am I going to get all of this shit done?
Yep. Like
it was one of the two things.
Yep.
Every time, which is fucking awful.
Well, and then, so it extends beyond like schoolwork too, though, like, or like responsibilities even. Like it happened to me with relationships where like it felt like when I was really spiraling in high school, like on one hand, I got a 31 on my ACT. I was like a very smart person. The only class I like nailed was physics, and that's because they didn't make you do homework in physics. You could turn in your notebook. You had a homework notebook, or I'm going to take half my test score and apply that to my homework. Homework was worth half of the test score.
Wow.
I never did a single physics problem the whole year. And I just got A's on everything.
Wow.
It's the only class I did great in because I didn't have to do homework. I just went home. I literally, at the end of the year, the teacher was like, I gotta say, like, and he holds up my notebook for the whole class. He's like, I've seen this many times, but it's never amounted to an A, ever. But he opens up my notebook and he does the flip thing through the whole notebook. And he's like, it's empty. And then he sets it down. And the whole class is like, what the? Remember the girl in front of me turns around. She's like, what the hell? I was like, sorry. She's like, you sleep all day. I was like, yeah, I know. But so I got into college. And I was like, holy shit, how did I get into college? I suck at this. So like things were going good for me, you know? Like I made the baseball team, I made the hockey team. I'm doing good things. But like this feeling of dread all the time because I felt like I had done irreparable damage to my relationship with my father.
Wow.
And I hated myself for it. Hated. We took a class. All right, it wasn't required. It should be, but it wasn't. It was called Positive Leadership. Bar none, the most impactful class I ever took in any school, in any capacity, like to any degree. Wow. But it was literally like the whole class was like therapy. My first foray into therapy. And like most kids took it because they were like, it's with Miss McGrath, who's a fucking badass. Everybody loves McGrath. And is a free A. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to take that. That's why I took it. And then I found myself multiple days in this class just heave crying, talking about how shitty my relationship with my dad was.
Wow.
And we had 3 major projects on the year. One of them was the confidence speech. And I like wrote a rap to my dad to the beat of Mockingbird.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was like literally like 64 bars. I was flipping through the notebook, like reading it in front of the class with the Mockingbird beat playing behind me. I'm crying. I'm like wiping tears off of this notebook as I'm reading it. Kids in the class, like people are crying around the class. Yeah. And that was like the first time that I like realized like I had enough insight to be like, I'm doing this. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Whereas
yes,
like
yes.
I truly owned, and this was the accountability thing, where I was like, oh damn, like this is my fault. But I didn't know how to fix it. This is like, I don't know how to stop the behavior I'm doing. Like I'm just acting impulsively. I don't know how to stop the impulsive behavior. I don't know how to change the impulsive behavior. And I certainly don't know how to like introduce new productive behaviors, you know?
Yeah.
Because like none of those have that dopamine reward.
It's fascinating to me though. I would have, and I don't mean to say this in the sense that like you painted a poor picture of your father, but like the like kind of stoic nature of him led me to believe that it would have been him kind of feeling like he's pushing you away or like not giving you credit where you feel it's due.
Yes.
So what was...
So retrospectively, like at the time, that's certainly how I felt.
Okay.
It was like, this is all him. Like he's a dick, you know? Never tells me he's proud of me. He doesn't care. Like he just wants me to be good at hockey and get good grades. That's all he cares about. But like to him, what he saw was a kid who refused to take accountability for anything, who was given every opportunity to succeed. Like literally every opportunity. I grew up a very fortunate child. And that extends to this day. Like my dad takes fucking great care of me when it comes to like making sure that I'm taken care of to some extent, you know?
Yeah.
And then beyond that, like here's a kid that he instilled all of these like really important values in that as a child he saw had all the promise in the world.
Okay.
And then as he got older, he saw the kid like not straight. Like my dad knew I didn't drink and smoke pot in high school. And to him, he's like, that's what the bad kids do. My kid's not doing those things. Why does my kid suck? What happened to my kid? You know? And I think to him, maybe it was just hard to believe that there was something else causing these issues. That like it was more of a conscious decision on my part to forego responsibility. Like when I had something I liked, I dove headfirst into it. And so he was like, I see you like applying these values to certain things. Why can't you just apply them to the things that really matter? Like, yeah, you're really good at sharpening hockey skates, dude. Great. You know?
Yeah.
Why are you so good at that and you suck at math? You're not bad at math. You just suck at it. Like, you can do it. And so that was like, for him, I think it was just such a conundrum of just like, what the hell is wrong with this kid? That's why I flunked out of college. Because my dad wasn't there.
Wow.
My dad couldn't be like, no. Do your homework. And instead, I was just like, frickin' give me Ronnie D.
Yeah.
Like, and that's it. Only give me Ronnie D. And I'll go to the dining center, I'll eat a couple sandwiches, and then I'm just going to drink.
Yes.
And then 8 a.m. class, fuck that. I'm not going.
It's weird because in college, like, the teachers don't really care what you do.
At all.
So you don't feel the
accountability's on you.
Yeah.
And I was taught how to be accountable, but I didn't know how to apply it to things that really mattered.
That's really interesting, dude.
I mean, and it took me years to get out of that slump, too. I mean, even after I moved home and started going to school again, still didn't have the accountability, except this time it wasn't drinking. That was my problem. It was smoking pot.
Mm.
And, you know, I mean, I'm not afraid to admit this because I don't do it anymore, you know? And it was like a tough time in my life, and I was battling like insane levels of depression.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask too, is like, I mean, you're doing downers. Like, how often were you spiraling?
Oh, God, every day.
Oh, okay.
Every day. Like into pits of despair. Every day. I used to do this thing. I swear to God this is true. I'm not exaggerating. Every day, I would drive to North Hennepin Community College. I was probably 19 years old when I did this. I would park my car. I would smoke pot, like smoke a couple one-e's or smoke a bowl or something. And I would sit in my car when I was supposed to be going to class. I would sit in the car in the parking lot for 5 hours.
Wow.
And I would sleep. And I would read comic books. And sometimes I'd go inside and buy food. I would literally go into the school to actively not go to class. And then I would come back outside. And I would sit and I would listen to the radio.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
just actively failing my classes.
So were you living at home?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay,
with my parents, yeah.
Got it.
But I was paying for my school. So I felt like I can do with my money what I want, you know? And then they're like, you can't come here anymore. Like, this is a community college, but like, dude, your GPA is like 0.32. Like, you failed gym, dude. What are you doing? You know? And then I got a job at Starbucks. And that turned everything around for me as far as work ethic goes.
Oh.
There's no downtime.
Oh,
it's the perfect place for somebody with ADHD to work. Actually, I should say I got a job at the city first. And that was like, you were extremely accountable for your work because your work is visible.
Are you fixing roads?
I was planting trees.
And
not just like little baby trees. I was planting like 600-700 pound trees.
Ugh.
That are like, 10, 12 feet tall, and they got a trunk that's this big, and the berm at the bottom is freaking this giant, heavy ball thing, and digging holes by hand, planting trees. I did it every day for a summer, and then I had to go find a real job because it was only my summer job, and that's when I started working at Starbucks. But working at the city, that'll reset you.
Yeah.
Which they say, like, nobody leans on a shovel better than a government worker. Which to some extent was true, but I had a crew leader that was a hard ass. And it that was where for the first time I felt like something not strictly meant to bring myself joy. I could be not only accountable, but find reward in it.
Mm.
It was the first job where I was excited to get out of bed and go to work,
That's interesting.
And then at Starbucks, it was the same thing. I was working 4 a.m. shifts. Still so stoned, but
Oh, yeah.
like doing great work. Like the regional manager of Starbucks that's like in charge of, 2,000 stores is like coming to watch me run a shift and take notes so he can tell other shift leaders around the 8-state area that he manages, this is how the guy who does it the best does it.
But so this is the fascinating part. All of this is happening, but you're still having these super sunken...
Oh, so depressed the whole time.
So, I mean, were you just white-knuckling until you got to Starbucks? You know what I mean? Like, because the in-betweens where you're alone with yourself...
No, it's breaks. Just 10-minute break, hate yourself for 10 minutes, go back in, people rely on you.
Okay.
So it's like accountability. That's like the root of like how I stay at stasis.
Okay.
It's like when I'm depressed, I let myself sit and sink into the depression if nobody relies on me.
Wow.
I have been less depressed in the last 4 months than the last 12 years. It's because we got a dog.
Ah.
I can't just sit in bed all day. Can't dick around. I can't play video games all day. Can't fuck around at work. He's got to poop. Like he's got to eat. He's got to be fed. But somebody's got to play with him. Somebody has to take him for a walk every day. So I do that stuff.
So what was the point though? Because, you're going through this, like you said, like, and it's like to me, it seems like the most common pattern is like before you find a solution, you don't just feel the thing, you let it engulf you. Like people who like have clinical depression and clinical anxiety, it's like, oh, I don't just worry. I like Ali Sultan jumped out a fucking window because he didn't want to have to deal with a social situation. It was just like 2 people coming over.
Yeah.
Like genuine clinical shit, like you just sink in and it totally engulfs you. So you're surviving on accountability, but in those in-between moments, at what point did you go, all right, I got to find a professional route versus the shit that I'm doing right now?
I have 2 moments.
Okay.
First moment, I used to have really bad anger issues. Still have bad anger issues, but they used to be like horrifying. Like I was very physically angry.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's patches and walls and broken doors in my parents' house. All my bad. Like my mom still has this old poster that my brother made on this door because I punched the door and there's like the doors is just broken, but like it covers it, so she keeps it there. Punched a hole in a wall at my parents' house. But the real bad moment was when I just exploded one day and I had like a sweatshirt on, not like a button-up sweatshirt or a zip-up sweatshirt, like an actual like full sweatshirt, right? Hoodie. And I just grabbed it and I ripped it in half, the whole thing. Just like I was just like fucking like rage angry, right?
Full Hogan.
And I grabbed a knife out of the knife block and I just like slammed it into the counter. And my mom was like shaking, terrified of me.
Wow.
And then she was like, you need to talk to somebody. So I went over to the chair and I looked up psychologist near me. And then I met Helene. And then I lied to Helene for 4 years that I was fine. Because it felt good. I could just go vent for a while, And she'd be like, so you're not smoking weed anymore? I'd be like, yeah, totally. And then I'd go out and smoke weed in the parking lot and then drive home. And then my alternator went out on my car one night, middle of winter, February. I was 20 years old. And I was coaching hockey at the time.
Oh.
My alternator went out, but I didn't know what an alternator being out was like. I was dumb,
Well, yeah.
So like my lights are flickering on the car. It's freaking cold as hell. And I'm like, what's going on with my car? Stopping at Starbucks. Like, hey guys, can I get a coffee? I got to go coach. And they're like, yeah, totally. What's going on with your car? And I'm like, I don't know. I changed the spark plugs a month ago and maybe that's the problem. I go to the rink. Everything's fine with the car when I leave. Go to my ex-girlfriend's house. Sit in the driveway. Car's on the whole time. Smoke weed in the car. That's what we did at my ex-girlfriend's house.
You
Literally.
would smoke with your ex-girlfriend? Or this was girlfriend at the time?
Girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
I would smoke.
The setup was kind of weird.
Poorly worded. We'd smoke pot. So we got just biblically stoned.
Oh, nice.
And then drove home and went to pull into my parents' driveway. It's middle of February. Like right now. Level cold, right? Went to pull in the driveway and the car died. It was like, and then it just rolled out of the driveway. And I was like, I can't park my car in the street overnight because it's illegal in my parents' neighborhood. I called my girlfriend at the time, and I emptied my car of all the weed stuff and put it in her car. And I grabbed a jacket and a blanket and a pillow from my car, and I just started walking down the street. I was just going to leave forever.
Wow.
That was it. That was the tipping point for me because I couldn't tell my parents. I couldn't go inside. Everyone was asleep. It meant I had to go wake them up and tell them that my car is dead in the middle of the road. I'm high as a kite right now. I can't confront them.
Okay.
Way too anxious to talk to anyone because I'm stoned, but also because of the consequences of me having killed the car and it's in the road. So then ultimately I walked back. This is probably an hour later. I got back to my parents' house. Now it's 3:34 in the morning. And I go inside and I wake my mom up and I tell her, hey, the car is dead and it's in the drive or it's in the road. So she wakes my dad up and I'm like, that's the worst possible situation. So my dad has to tie a tow rope to my car and tow it into the driveway. But he doesn't want to have my mom be the one turning the car, and he won't let me do it because he knows I'm stoned. So he's like, why would I let you get behind the wheel of a car? So he gets in the car. And first thing he says, he sits down in the car. He's like, smoke weed in here, huh?
Oof.
And I was like, no. And he's like, well, you're either smoking it or selling it.
Dude, that confident angry is terrifying.
Yep. So car gets in the driveway. He puts the emergency brake on, slams the door, goes inside. On his way in, he said, get the fuck in here. And I was like, okay. And then my family had like a full-blown intervention with me.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's crying. I'm so high. Still crying a lot.
Oh, for sure.
My dad's crying.
Wow.
He's like,
now, is it that like that?
It's sad dad crying.
It is sad dad crying.
Like, it's like, he's like, you're throwing your entire life away.
Wow.
Like, you're doing nothing. Like, what are you doing? Why? Like, that was the biggest question from all of them is like, why? Like, what for? You know? What's it all for? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm sad. Like, I hate everything. Like, I hate myself. I hate the circumstances I put myself in. I don't know how to get out of them. I'm a manager at a Starbucks right now, and it pays dick, and I spend all that money on weed. So, like, I'm stuck here forever. I suck at school. I hate school. My favorite possession is this freaking New York Yankees bomber jacket that I got at Savers for $7. I have nothing. Yeah, that was when I like really started to try to turn my life around. It was pretty much that moment. Didn't quit smoking pot, but I like started trying to, you know, have some responsibility, take accountability. That was the biggest thing, was like, if I fucked up, I owned it. And now, like, I don't smoke pot. I don't really drink at all. Because I've learned that, like, to be accountable, I have to also pay attention to the fact that the symptoms of me when I'm on substances is god-awful for me. Like, my anxiety was at an all-time high. I quit smoking pot. I'm like, weird. Like, the world isn't going to end. It's amazing how much less Jordan Peterson I watch now that I don't smoke pot.
Oh, my God.
Alex Jones does not sound like he's making sense anymore.
That's so funny.
It's so true, though. That's the weirdest part is, like, quit doing that stuff and, like, like I said, I quit drinking and, like, it's gotten even better. And I shouldn't say I quit drinking, but, like, I quit drinking.
What's the moderation?
Yes.
You learned what moderation meant.
Yeah, but it's even less than moderation, you know? It's like I consider it like a special treat now.
That's still because you're an adult, so you could do it all the time.
Yes.
So
moderating myself, yes. Yeah. That makes sense. But like, you know, I had a beer on Friday with dinner. But it was just because, like, that particular beer sounded really good with the wings I was about to eat. I was like, I'm good with water. And then she's like, all right, sounds good. And then I ordered my food, and I was like, you know what? Can I get the pistachio cream ale? And she's like, yeah. And then I had that beer, and then I went home, and I didn't have beer anymore. It's like, you know, and it's like you have to train, but that's part of the accountability thing. Is like, I know if I have more when I get home, I'm going to feel like shit tomorrow. And what do I do on Saturday mornings? I take Kirby to the park. And if I feel like shit, I'm not going to want to take Kirby to the park. But Kirby needs to go to the park. And he deserves to go to the park.
I love that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's like, that's like, it's weird, like that the thing that caused me for the first 5/6 of my life, the most anxiety and self-loathing, and just caused all the turmoil and just like harm and hatred and dread is the one thing that's keeping me true to like my responsibilities now. Like that accountability complex.
Ooh.
It's so fucked up when you don't have anything to be accountable for.
Yeah.
And then when things show up that you have to be accountable for, but you don't know how to exercise that muscle, things pile up. And when you have anxiety, you just ignore the pile. And you turn it into a cool thing you have. Where people are like, what's that? And you're like, that's my anxiety pile. I put all my clothes there and toys sometimes. And then I lose them, so I buy a new one. I mean, I did that.
But so
go ahead.
That's the other thing that I'm curious about is the diagnoses that you were given that started to like put these puzzle pieces together. Was that done on your own then? Like in adulthood, you were saying, I want to figure this shit out, or was it the events?
So the events started it. Jeez, real voice reveal.
That's okay.
So the events started it for sure, but I would say like the prognosis of the diagnosis is what further inspired me to dig into what's actually happening. Because like I was diagnosed right away with like, she's like, you seem anxious. You know, we're in a therapy office and you're leaving nail marks in the chair. And then, you know, she's like, you definitely got depression for sure. And then the dysthymia thing came around and she was like, so you're like kind of always depressed, right? And I'm like, yeah, kind of. She's like, oh. But then the ADHD thing was a self-directed diagnosis. Especially because for her, she kept saying like, I think something else is going on. He's just not really telling me. I'm like, all right. But then she's like, one day she was just like, what if he just took an ADHD test? And I was like, I don't know. What if? Like, what happens then? Do I get to take crazy pills? And she was like, no. Sometimes it's helpful to know. I was like, all right. And then the test happened, and I was like, yo, your boy's got ADHD. It's been a lot easier now, like now that I have control of my anxiety, to be able to explore the ADHD too. Because it would make me more anxious to explore the ADHD before, because I didn't know how to cope with it.
Oh.
So I was like, fuck. I can't want to feel better, or I can't try to feel better. It's like my same thing. Like when I had really bad anxiety, this is why I gained all this weight. Because I started to notice that my body was having fatigue issues because I wasn't getting enough exercise.
Oh.
And then I got fat. And then I started to notice my heart would beat too much. And I was like, fuck, do I have heart problems? I definitely have heart problems. Like hypochondriac, like to the max, you know?
Yeah.
And then, so I stopped exercising almost entirely because I was like, I have heart problems. So I can't exercise. I don't want to stress my heart out too much.
Of course not.
And then I got large. And then I stopped drinking. And like since then, like I run with Kirby now.
Oh, really?
I ran in jeans and these yesterday when I took him for a walk. So I run the last 400 yards of our walk. That's my new thing. Take him for a nice long walk, and then the last we just sprint home, the last bit. And I had to convince myself, like, the reason I'm doing this is because he needs to run. But then also I'm like, I can fucking run, you know? And I don't worry about my heart pounding too much because I'm like, I don't have anxiety. I don't have to, I'm fine. My heart's not broken, you know? But like, seriously, it got so bad. Where I would just like go sit outside and cry in our freaking swing because I'm like, my body's a wonderland. But like, you know, I look like a busted can of biscuits. Like I hate myself.
A busted can of biscuits.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you. I just like, you know, you get into those. So now that the anxiety's under control, it's a lot easier for me to be able to take a look at my symptoms and be like, okay, these behaviors are going to contribute to further my anxiety. So I should stop these behaviors. So like my new thing is like I set alarms in my phone now. So I call my grandparents. So I don't feel guilty about not calling my grandparents because that makes me anxious.
Do you usually call them on the way to here?
No.
Oh, okay.
Nope. I call them. I have 2 different days set up, but I have the alarms set up. So now tomorrow I call my grandpa. And now it's set up. And now I won't feel guilty about not calling him anymore. And then my anxiety about not calling him, and then about the existential dread of him getting older, and the anxiety that goes along with me not addressing the fact that I am not calling him, and one day I'm not ever going to be able to call him anymore, and all that whole fucking spiral. I just set an alarm. It's gone. Spiral's gone.
I am that way too, where like the more it started within the last like 3 years, where as soon as I start to learn a thing, I go, oh, it's partial like radical acceptance. And
explain that. What is radical acceptance?
So radical acceptance, remember when I told you about that clairvoyant guy who, so he's a comedian who says that he's like a medium.
Okay.
Right? And he can connect to your aura and this and that. And they had him on King the Sting. And they're like, when did you find out that you could do this stuff? He's like, well, I've always known, but I'm also bipolar. And a lot of people with bipolar are more in tune with. And when I heard that, I went, oh no, you just think that you're more in tune with. That's a part of our chemical imbalance. So it just sunk in. I went, oh, I don't actually have like supernatural abilities to connect to these things. Like it's just repetitive behavior that allows me to connect to people in these ways. And you know what I mean? Like,
okay, yeah. So like your extreme level of empathy.
So you know when like people with bipolar, you talk about going manic.
Yes.
These manic behaviors, right? So a side effect of that is like when you're feeling really high, and this isn't with everybody, but with a lot of them, or us, I should say, we feel more in tune with everything. So because of that, you start to think, oh, did that happen because I knew this thing? Like coincidences are not coincidences.
Right. Okay.
It just happened. The second that I heard him say people with bipolar are more in tune with, I just went, I'm bipolar. That's why I think this way. Mm-hmm. Because I'm an atheist, and I've been an atheist for, how old's Layla? 9 years.
Yeah.
So I know, well, to me, I know that that shit doesn't exist. But for some reason, I still think it applies to me. And so all of that fell off the second that I heard that thing.
Interesting. So it's like a piece of your, like a piece of a complex that you've sort of built, just like melted away in an instant. Wow.
But it sucked. Like if you look back on
look at the light. Go ahead.
The Pidcast, I think it was last year. I brought it up on the show, and I almost started crying because it was a piece of me that I thought that I was, because that's a pretty fantastical thing to have, and then to go, oh, it's gone. That's
you like lose you lose what you've believed to be a part of you for a long time,
really long time,
because of like an extremely sobering realization.
Well, it was also something that made you feel important. Like that's a part of that whole.
It's like adds to your purpose to some degree.
Exactly. Yeah. So you feel like I'm meant for more than this.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh.
Not that I'm not meant
I know, but you have a moment where you're like, damn it, now I just have to eat peanut butter.
Yeah, exactly. It's so
interesting.
So yeah, so I then start to go, oh, that's why it's tough for me to just accept that it's okay for me to just be a dad and just be this thing. It's because I feel very strongly towards this thing that there's something out there. It's why I was terrible with relationships, because I was like, but what, the way that girl looked at me, like, like it's this, there's some other thing. And so once that started to happen, and happened again.
I feel like I'm kind of having that right now. Jesus.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Well, and ADHD.
I have this all the time.
ADHD exhibits very similar things with.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm bipolar. I'm not like self-diagnosing, but like I'm
acknowledging that I get why. Yeah,
I feel that. Like where something great happens and you're like, I'm destined for greatness. And then like you get to ride that for like 12 minutes, and then somebody on the phone is like, no, I'm not interested. And you're like, I'm going to hell. You know?
Yeah.
Dude, that explains a significant portion of why I behave the way I do.
Yeah. Well, and why it adds to that depression pile.
Yeah.
Because you go, I'm 35 and why am I not on America's Got Talent showing them how fucking funny I am? Like, you do these things that like,
you have like where you're like out taking the dog for a piss and you're like, yeah, if Joe Rogan asked me about this, I have the perfect answer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another thing is, if I just had the chance to show them who I am or like explain my whatever,
everything would be different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that.
Live in that universe, man.
But that's the fascinating thing, is that we lived so long with all of this bullshit, and it's so convincing that no, there's no explanation other than I suck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
so you just bury yourself in that loathing because you haven't achieved what you perceive to be like your ceiling, or like you haven't broken through the threshold, or the, whatever per se.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that was a huge problem for me with comedy. So I quit going on stage to some degree. Jesus. Certainly contributed, I would say.
Yeah.
To my not really wanting to get back on, because I realized, like, oh, now that this is out of my life, I'm way less. I hate myself way less.
Yeah. Because you'd have to have that conversation with yourself where you're like, it's just an open mic.
Yeah.
That's one night out of a million that you're going to have.
Yeah.
Chill the fuck out.
Right.
You can't help but be like, why? Why am I not crushing every time I go
Or like
on stage?
you do crush and you're like,
it's the same fucking jokes I've been telling.
yeah. And then you're like, fuck, God, dude, if Louis was here right now, I'd be moving to New York.
Yep.
Like Caroline's would have me every night. But that's not how it works.
Yeah.
And I just like, I could not get out of that state of mind. It took not being in that state of mind to realize, oh.
What advice would you have for people who are currently in that situation? Like, because it's relatively new to you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's new to me too, but
yeah.
saying like 20 years of experience. But I
I
like
feel
to,
like going full James Lipton on it.
I like to have the guest.
Dude, that's who you are.
Am I James Lipton?
No, you're punk James Lipton.
Oh. I like to think that I'm bisexual James Lipton.
Either what? Isn't he already kind of though?
I don't know.
Actually, he's like
Would you not be surprised by either?
he's like poetry sexual.
Ooh.
Or literature sexual.
Yes. Literary sexual.
Yeah. But you're like a punk rock James Lipton. That's fucking rad.
I feel like I'm dressed like a punk rock Mr. Rogers right now.
Yeah, but you got glasses and a beard and awesome hair, so James Lipton.
But yellow, right?
Yeah. yeah.
But yeah, so like when you're trying to get to that point, because like we were like a common thread in all of these things that held us back was like, it feels impossible to just ask for this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To say, or to give yourself that, like you say a lot of times, that grace.
Yeah.
To go through this thing.
Yeah.
Like, so what are those?
I guess for me, like the best advice I can give to somebody who's going through maybe similar circumstances to what I was going through would be to like accept those things that you are truly accountable for, recognize the things that you are not accountable for, and then relinquish control of those things. Because that's what contributes to your anxiety, is a feeling of a loss of control and like you're letting people down. And if you're no longer feeling desperate to take care of others or to take care of this thing that somebody needs from you or to do X thing because it's so important for your future, if you just like take a real inventory of the things that you're truly accountable for and pour yourself into those things and then just do your best to let go of the things that you're not in control of or accountable for, it makes it a lot easier to cope with the highs and the lows, but also with the spiral. That's been the most mind-opening, or not mind-opening, but like most like possibility opening thing for me. Is like, I feel like for the longest time, especially as somebody with ADHD, and I think people will that kind of similar struggles will relate to this, is like you feel like you close every door to possibilities with every mistake you make.
Oh.
And like that's just not true. Just like try to not make so many mistakes. And then again, be honest with yourself about what you're truly accountable for. If you commit to something, commit 100%. Don't ever half-ass two things. Whole-ass one thing.
I couldn't agree more.
Ron Swanson.
I love the way that you word that too. Not the asshole thing, but
Oh, yeah.
form of that we've heard our entire lives is accept the things that you can change. Or how does that saying go? Lord, give me the strength to.
It's like, Lord, bear me the strength to.
Change the things I can and accept the things that I cannot.
Yeah, something like that.
There we go.
Yeah.
But like to do it in the accountability, because when people hear something that's is that an idiom?
Yeah.
Wow.
Look at you, Plato.
That that we've heard our entire lives, it's really difficult.
Yeah. Like, and also like, because you've heard it your entire life and it hasn't worked for you, it just feels less and less possible every time you hear it.
Yeah. Or that it just does not apply to you. It might as well be a unicorn.
Yeah. Like, thanks, Grandma. Appreciate the check in the Bible you gave me.
But the accountability thing, it's so applicable. It's applicable to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
What are you accountable for today? Like, and if you don't do the things you're accountable for, it's okay to loathe yourself a little bit for them. Because that is the effective guilt complex playing its role. When you're like feeling guilty when there's things that you're not accountable for, that's bad guilt. But guilt isn't all bad. That's another thing that I'm telling you guys. Not all guilt is bad.
It's more like, I would say, like, I don't know, because guilt has such.
If all guilt was bad, everyone would be murdering everybody and nobody would care.
I think like remorse or.
Yeah.
Like,
that's probably, remorse is a far less terrible term.
Because guilt is something that's labeled like.
Yeah. You are guilty of.
You're guilty, or you say, I'm guilty. Or you could say, I feel bad about this thing.
Yeah. To kind of throw the nail of finality into the coffin. There will come a day when accountability like feels like the only thing that you get to do.
Wow.
That day comes for everyone.
Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah. And Sister Act. But like dreading that is doing a disservice to yourself, because the more accountability you have on yourself, the more you're doing right, because the more accountable you are, the more good you're doing.
Because you're taking you're consciously looking for what we say in the addiction world, the next right thing.
Yeah. And
which can sound heavy to certain people, but it can be as simple as the next right thing is flush the toilet. Mm-hmm. Like that. It's very simple.
Like in the world of accountability, you have more things that you're accountable to than I am, or than I do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's good.
Yeah.
Because you did the next right thing enough times that now you have more things to be accountable for.
Yeah.
Caitlin and I, someday, we're going to try to make another Pitra. Oops, by the way.
Pitra dish?
Yeah, they used to call me that, and the gym teachers called me that.
I want to point out, too, that like accountability is not a finality thing.
No.
Those things can reciprocate. It's not like...
They almost always do.
Yeah. So it's not like accountability means like you are chained to this thing and
right.
It's like a slave driving thing.
I don't... accountability and obligation are not the same thing. Accountability is like... It's like being the captain of the football team.
It's purpose.
Yes, exactly. So it's like being the captain of the football team.
Yeah.
I just wanted to repeat. That was a terrible analogy.
Well,
so
what can you do?
Why not repeat it? But yeah, like, being accountable is like a virtuous trait. Like, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So like, and then, try to shift those things that you feel obligated about in your life. Weigh them truthfully, and then shift them into accountability if you can. Like, you're not obligated to go to that thing with your friends.
Never.
Ever. So don't feel guilty if you don't go.
No.
That's why it was so great when I had diarrhea problems. So I just be like, nah, man, IBS is acting up. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, as I'm eating Taco Bell.
I just want to say thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me on.
It was fortuitous that because I didn't have a guest lined up because shit was weird last week. So
and I didn't read the text chain properly. So here we are.
But yeah, thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me, dude.
And to the listeners, be well to yourselves.
Take care of you.
I end the thing.
I know you can end it before.
No,
that.
it's.